All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you guys all for joining us today. My name is Zach Ems. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for the Houston Dynamo Football Club, and excited to be here and excited to have all of you here for a really special day for our club. Before we get started with the presentation, there's a lot of important folks here, special guests at the club on the stage and in the audience. In the audience, I just want to recognize a couple of our Dynamo legends, most of shaking his head here, but Eddie Robinson, Bobby Boswell. I want to thank you guys for coming out today. Our club president, John Walker, is here, Vice Chairman Lyle Hayes as well, a number of our executive staff, and certainly all of the folks here in the Houston media that took time out of your day to be here. So we appreciate that. Like I said, it's an exciting day for us here at the Houston Dynamo Football Club. We have an opportunity to welcome back one of our greats back to the club, and more importantly, probably start the first step in a new chapter for the club. With us here on the stage are club majority owner Ted Segal and an individual who probably needs no introduction for Dynamo fans, but we did ask you all to come down here for this, so we'll go ahead and introduce him anyway. For that, I'll turn it over to Ted to make the formal introduction here.
Thanks, Zach, and good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for this important moment for our club. Before we get to today's announcement, I'd like to recognize the efforts of the Dash, whose season unfortunately concluded yesterday. They're a talented squad, and I look forward to seeing what next season brings. Additionally, we still have one match remaining in the season for the Dynamo, and the staff are all preparing for Wednesday's match against Montreal right now. I want to wish them and the team luck on Wednesday night as we look to ending the season on a high note. Today marks the culmination of a comprehensive process that began exactly 2 months ago on September 1st and results in today's announcement of a new general manager for the Houston Dynamo. From the start, it's been inspiring to see how many candidates recognize the opportunity to return the club to its championship roots. What began as a wide pool of candidates, many with MLS experience, others with experience in leagues across the globe, soon began to narrow based on our search criteria. Among other things, we knew we were looking for a candidate with experience leading clubs to championships, experience identifying and cultivating talent, experience operating within the unique MLS framework, and credibility on and off the pitch, both internally and externally, nationally and internationally. One person stood out in this process, and that person is Pat Onstad. Pat's accomplishments are well known across the league and here in Houston. Following a storied 25-year playing career that included 57 appearances for the Canadian national team, 3 MLS Cup titles, including back-to-back titles here in Houston, and individual accolades as 2-time MLS Goalkeeper of the Year, Pat has ascended the ranks on the technical side over the last decade. Pat has served as an assistant coach, chief scout, and technical director for 3 MLS teams since 2011, including the last 7 years at the Columbus Crew, where most recently as technical director, he helped build the roster that won the 2020 MLS Cup and the 2021 Campeones Cup. Quite simply, Pat knows what it takes to be part of and to create winning clubs. And beyond his track record of success and leadership roles at every stop at his career, Pat's readiness for the job was demonstrated over the course of our meetings with him. The depth, substance, and detail of Pat's presentations during the interview process illustrated the qualities that I believe will make him successful as our general manager. Lastly, and most importantly, to a person, Pat was recognized for the quality of his temperament and judgment and his readiness to take on this role. Pat knows what it takes to build a winning culture in Houston, and he has the character to execute that objective. Welcome home, Pat. And as I concluded my introductory press conference, let's hold it down and get to work. Thank you.
I wrote that, by the way. It was really nice. It was nice. Took a while too. I'm really excited to be back what I consider home. We spent 5 years here, my family, my wife Becky, my 2 sons Peyton and Owen, and my daughter Abigail, who was born here. We love this place. When we left, it was hard. It was emotional when we left. So when the opportunity arose to come back and to lead this club, to hopefully lead it to success and to contend for championships. It was something that I was super excited about, and I couldn't wait to get the opportunity to do it. So when they said that this was a detailed presentation, let me tell you, it's been about 10 years in the works, so it should be pretty detailed. But I'm really excited about the challenge ahead of us, and I know it is a big challenge here at the club. I want to bring this club to a level where people can be proud of it, and people can feel like this is a team that every season has a chance to win a trophy. It's something that these two guys here with us have been fortunate enough. You weren't in the 06 one, were you, or the 7 one? Bobby wasn't so fortunate. But Eddie was. And Eddie would know that winning a championship and being able to celebrate it here in this city is second to none. And I want people to be able to enjoy that again, to be able to celebrate with us. And that's my goal. There's a few people I want to thank before we get into any sort of questions and stuff. But I'm very fortunate. Obviously, I talked about my family before. My wife is very supportive and extremely excited to come back. Probably as much excited as I am. She's like tenfold. This is her home, so she's excited. And my children, Peyton, Owen, and Abigail, have always been very supportive in my career. So I've been lucky there. I've had some influence, some fantastic coaches I've been fortunate to work with. Some that you know very well as well. Dominic Kinnear, Frank Yallop before him. I got to work with Ben Olsen in D.C., and then I was fortunate to work with Greg Berhalter in Columbus. Some fantastic coaches that taught me a lot about the game and a lot about character. So I think that's something that you'll see here with this group. I have an idea of how I want this team from a vision. And talking to Ted, he has a vision of what this club should look like, the style of play that we should have. We want to be a proactive team, a team that goes after it, and a team that these people can be proud of. So that's my goal for this team. I know it's a lot of work ahead of me, but I'm excited for the challenge and can't wait to get started.
Awesome. One more round of applause for Pat, and we'll get started with questions. And guys, we do have an audience on Facebook, fans watching this, so if you have questions, please just get my attention, and I'll get the microphone to you. While we're getting the microphone, we'll start with Corey Rupkin here from the Houston Chronicle. While we're getting the mic to Corey, I'd be remiss if I didn't also recognize former Dynamo president and current president of the Houston World Cup 2026 bid committee, Chris Canetti. Chris, thanks for coming as well. With that, we'll go ahead and open up for questions. We'll start with you, Corey.
Hey, Pat. You mentioned, always loving Houston. I'm curious, when you left and while you were away, what sort of connections did you keep with this city and with this club while you were gone?
Well, there's a few guys in the room that I still kept in touch with, Corey, but I think the biggest thing is you always kept following the team. I was close to Dominic Kinnear as well, so seeing how he was doing. Wade Barrett is another guy that was my roommate actually back when we played, but I think I've always had my eye on the club, just to kind of see in the corner. I think when you play at a place that you have a close attachment to the fans, to the community, to the city, to the club, it's always something in the back of your mind. You're always following, okay, how did we do, whatever club I was with, whether it's DC, Toronto, or Columbus. Then my next one is, how did the Dynamo do this week? So I've been following them pretty closely of their ups and recent downs, I guess you'd say, so to speak. But it's a club that has great potential, and a club I think that I'm excited with the opportunity to lead.
Go ahead, Lester.
Hey, Pat.
Hey, Lester.
How you doing?
Good. I'm good.
Good to see you.
How about you? You travel where? I thought you were just in Atlanta.
A little bit, yes. We just landed. Just two-part question, I guess, from me. Number one, as you look at this team with a fresh set of eyes, a fresh perspective, what is the biggest priority on the field that needs to be addressed from your perspective?
I mean, on the field is to get better, and that's the bottom line. I think I have players and stuff and a style that I want to see. I think the big one is that we make sure that we go after the correct players and the players that fit into a system. I think one thing we've done a good job of in Columbus is that we've ID'd players that fit the system that Caleb Porter is trying to play there, and we've tried to support him by finding the right type of player. So first and foremost is players. We need to get better on the field. But at the same token, I think from the club all the way around, I'll spend the next few weeks, months maybe, trying to evaluate everybody, whether it's staff, players, so forth, and try to essentially try to get better.
And then the second part of that question, as you touched upon that vision that you and Ted and others have tried to develop and try to see where that goes. Can you share that with us, even if it's in general terms?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fairly general, but I think you know, Ted made a great point when we spoke. I mean, this is the energy capital of the United States, and I think we need to have a high-energy team. I think I know that there's obviously things you have to take into account. I think when you play in a climate like this, it's hard to demand 90 minutes of full pressing soccer from your whole group. But at the end of the day, I think you need to be proactive in the way you play the game. The game has changed from it, you know, look at Barcelona this year as a great example of a ticky-tacky type style, and they're really struggling. So I think you need to be proactive, and you can look around the world now at the teams that are really successful, the Bayern Munichs, the Liverpools, whatnot. I think they're a proactive team. They get in the other team's face and make it uncomfortable for them to play. But at the same token, when they get an opportunity, they can control the tempo of the game and score goals, create goal-scoring opportunities.
Go ahead, Matt.
I touched on this with an earlier comment, but looking from afar, you said you checked the scores, but what was your perception of what was going on with this organization? And what have you found other people around the league, their perception of what's going on here?
Yeah, I think the perception around the league is it's a club that has a lot of potential. I was actually fortunate enough to be here in 2012 when they opened the stadium. It was actually the first game I was with DC, so it was nice to see, and you could see that people were very excited. I think people were happy to come to the stadium, happy to support the team. And what I've seen from afar is that you've kind of lost that a little bit, the connection to the community, connection to the ex-players that you've had, and I'm hoping that we can bring that back.
Hey, Pat. The Houston Dynamo, they played a 17-year-old this past game. How important would the academy be in how you build this team and use some of those players with the first team?
It's a great question. I do think that's an important way to bring players into your club now in this league, especially as we start focusing on youth players. I think it's the initiative now the last couple of years from MLS to bring in youth player slots is important, because I think you now bring in these young players, and they're not just players, you're developing them, but at the same token, you're now developing them as that they're now asset for your club. You can go and sell them. I think the academy is kind of working in the same step in step with that YPS program. It's interesting you talk about Juan Castillo, because Juan had actually come to Columbus and been training in Columbus for a few days. Let's just say politely, we tried to see if we could get him to convince him to come to Columbus, but Houston had other ideas. And fortunately, I was actually very fortunate that I saw him yesterday make his debut. So I'm really happy for Juan. I think he's worked very hard to get where he is. He's still a young player. I think you saw there's some, for the 7 minutes that he played, he had some good moments and some other moments where he looked like a 17-year-old kid playing soccer with men. So, but that's what they're here for. And the more you give those guys experience, the more opportunity you have for them to develop into professional athletes.
Go ahead, Sam. Back.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, Sam.
My name is Sam, Africa Sports Network. I have this question for you. Aside from the on-field performance, which you've outlined what needs to be done to get good results on game days, when I watch where you're coming from play, the stadium is always filled to the brim. You see the fans, everybody, stadium is filled up. But here is a stark contrast of where you're coming from. So do you have any plan in motion to make sure that maybe, we bring the fans back? Imagine 22,000 voices supporting Houston Dynamo, what it would look like, the atmosphere.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think when I certainly I'm going to go back when I played here, and Bobby and Eddie can attest to this as well, is that we played in front of big crowds and had a lot of energy and stuff, especially at Old Robertson Stadium. That's what I remember. That's my experience. I think first and foremost, you need a product on the field that's competitive. I think if I'm a fan and I'm spending money out of my pocket from my work during the week, I want to make sure I'm coming to support a winner. So that's my biggest goal, is to try to provide a winner for the teams, for the fans, for the team. And I think once we can do that, we can hopefully bring people back. But the second part of that is to connect to the community. And I think that's a big part of our club. When this club is connected to the community, I think that's when people feel a part of it and they want to support everybody, whether it's win or loss, they want to come and support. So I'll tell a little bit of a story. I'll backtrack here, and Chris will probably know this. He'll be rolling his eyes in the back a little bit. But there was a moment when we were in Robertson Stadium that I think, and you guys can attest to this, there was some intimacy to that. And not saying the stadium by far, back then, Robertson, I would take this, and 100 times out of 100, there's no comparison. So I'm definitely not saying go back to Robertson Stadium. I just want to be clear on that. But what I would say is, the difference was you had these moments where there was interactions with the fans. And we were actually just talking with Lyle and Ted just a few minutes ago, and John. And there was a moment I always thought that was really kind of special. After games, we would have a little area called an autograph alley. And it was nothing big, but after every game, players like Bobby and Eddie, who are actually regulars out there, would, they'd shower up and they'd come out, and there'd be, sometimes 20, sometimes 200 people that would interact with the player. The player would sign an autograph, and most guys that would go out there would sit there until everyone signed everyone's autograph. And it's a small detail. It's a small detail, but what I felt is it connected to the fans, The fans then felt like they were a part of the team. They get that moment with a professional athlete. They get a chance to connect. And I think we're in a sport where it's, there's not many jobs in the world where you go into a room and you get a press conference and you have fans around. But we're fortunate. This is the business we run in, but we're human beings like everyone else. And I think when people can have that connection and they can relate to the people on a human level, I think it really makes a big difference and it brings a connection. So I'm hoping with the support of ex-players, with support of your media, support of the fans and the players, is that we get together and we all work together to try to make this a successful club.
Go ahead, Victor.
Victor Ariza for the Striker Texas. My question's for the owner, Ted Segal. I think fans appreciate the sentiment of connecting back to the history days of the club. For those on the fence that are thinking, Pat's success is going to be as good as the resources that he has available, similar to Columbus bringing him a big star player like Lucas Elarrayan from Liga MX. What can you say to reinforce, what you've already said in the past, that there will be resources coming this offseason?
I can reiterate that there will be resources coming this offseason. Victor, I know that you might be looking for a specific number. I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to stand by the fact that there will be a materially higher spend. Pat and I have talked about that objective. I think when you see the salaries released at this time next season, that you'll be able to judge us, and it'll be significantly different than where we are today. And I think, again, like I've said before, befitting of a city of the size and support that Houston is.
If I can add to that, Victor, too, I think when I spoke with Ted, and that was the number one reason why I thought this is a gentleman here that believes in the city, is willing to support the club and give this club an opportunity to move forward. So I'm excited to have the opportunity in terms of, from a budgetary standpoint, an opportunity to try to build this club and try to make it successful. But I wouldn't have taken this opportunity had I not felt that I didn't have the support of ownership.
Go ahead.
To add one more here, for the Houston Dash side of things. Fans may be wondering on that side, just the future of James Clarkson, the head coach, and then maybe the possibility of adding the general manager on the women's side as well?
So again, the season concluded yesterday. I haven't had a chance to debrief with Coach Clarkson. We had a positive meeting with the players and staff on Thursday before they went off to Washington, D.C., and then in a players-only session as well. I thought that was a thoughtful and constructive discussion that we had, and took a lot of good ideas away from that, but have no news to break on additional staffing measures at this time.
We'll go over to Leopoldo Mata. Go ahead, Mr. Mata.
So, Pat, my question is, it goes more or less in the same direction as Victor. Your ex-boss is being one of the top negotiators on the MLS. So did you learn something on how to deal on this issue of the designated players, so you can implement it here? Because to me, it's something that this club has lacked in the past.
Yeah, so I'm trying to be careful here. Yes, I think the biggest thing, in terms of the negotiation, yes, I'm very comfortable negotiating contracts in that magnitude. Obviously, did not close the Lucas Elarrayan, Tim Bezbachenko closed that deal, but was a big part of that conversation. They haven't announced it yet, but they're working hard, I think, on extending that deal as well. So I was a part of that. So that's not a concern for me. What I would say from, I think what Victor had asked earlier to Ted, was that we are willing to spend. So I think when we're willing to spend, I'm comfortable going out and trying to find the right players for the right mix and make sure that we do that to improve this team. That's my sole purpose.
And I don't know, have you contemplated the idea of looking into the fields, going into the fields? We have a lot of immigrants that are coming and participates on our local leagues, and the talent is there. But it seems, I don't know if there is something about the negotiation or the professional way the leagues works, that they don't look into that great source of great players over there. And
Are
it will be
you
great-
suggesting like for academy, or are you suggesting
no,
for
no, no,
professional? So-
directly, they have it, they don't have to go through the process. They already ready to compete on the high level.
Okay. What I would say from our scouting department is that it's an area I think that we'll definitely improve on. Something where I think to change the team, to make it better, the easiest way to do that is to get a better product in the field, and that's getting better players. So to do that, to get the right players in the right time, and the players that fit the system that you're going to play or the style that you want to play, you have to make sure that you have a robust scouting department. And I think for us, the first thing that we can do, we have a lot of things that we would like to improve and build out on, but I think the first thing that we can do is improve the scouting department, and doing that, I think we can improve the product on the field. I know it doesn't specifically answer your question about people who are in the local in the area, but that is will be a part of the scouting department, and something that we'll have to improve.
Okay, and real quick, we'll do a couple more here in person, so go ahead and let me know if you have additional questions. We have some folks also joining us on Zoom, so if you're watching on Zoom and you have some questions remotely, go ahead and click the raise your hand button, and we'll get you in here in just a second. We'll go next over to Garrett Heinrich. Go ahead, Garrett.
Hey, Pat. Do you have a favorite memory you talked about how much you loved it here. Do you have a favorite memory from playing here?
Yeah, I have a few, but I think one probably of the best memory I had in my career was the 2006 final, and I'm good. Poor Jay Heaps here, who's a fantastic player and a great competitor, is going to hate this, but I was stopping the last penalty kick, and we were talking about this morning, Garrett. I thought it was an interesting story. Is that I'm not very good at stopping penalties, generally speaking. Eddie would say that because he probably caused 8 or 9 of them, and it says any chance this guy. Any chance this guy can stop one of these days. So anyways, then we get to the final, and Jay was walking up in midfield, and we'd had a pre-scout because New England had played before and done penalties, and I had a good idea, except Jay had ended up taking one. So as he's walking up, he looked like the loneliest man in the world. He just did not want to be taking that penalty kick. So I just remember saying to myself, if I guess the right way, I got a chance. Guess the right way. Don't. And then when it actually came to me on the 4th hop, I said, just don't mess this one up now. So stopped it. But the moment I think that I remember more than anything, before getting crushed by Stuart Holden, who actually the first time he ever showed some pace in midfield, was running to the crowd and sliding on my knees, which goalies never do. So Bobby would shake his head. He goes, only center backs do that. As I was sliding and staring at this wall of orange at the time, I think was Pizza Hut Park, if I'm not mistaken, Chris. But it was just a moment that you felt like you connected. And when I talk about connections with the fans, and these are the moments that, whether it's a general manager, a player, a coach, an owner, that you never forget. These moments where you can connect with the fans, and that was a moment that was very special to me, and something that I'll never forget.
Go ahead, Jesus.
Ted, how early in the interview process among all the different candidates did you guys lock in and Pat and say, he's our guy, and now we just have to, go through that whole process?
So I'll say that from the initial meeting with Pat, he impressed us in a way that at least I individually thought was very impressive. In these initial meetings, a lot of times it's a very high level exchange of pleasantries, not a ton of detail. We sat with Pat for about 2 hours. He had a 80-slide PowerPoint deck prepared, and that was on the first go-around. So now when he mentions that it's been 10 years in the making, I do believe him. And the second time around, he flew to New York and met with us and came back with a 100-page PowerPoint presentation going into further detail about some of his plans, and that was another 2.5-hour sessions. So I would say he stood out from the very beginning, and then he confirmed it that second go-around. And so what I read today about the detail and the substance of what he had to share, it's 100% the case.
Okay. Any additional questions here in the room, guys? All right. Edgar, any on Zoom? Okay. We'll go ahead and conclude the formal Q&A here. I want to do a quick photo op with Ted and Pat, and then they'll both be available along with several other folks here if you have individual questions afterwards. You guys look right down the center as well from the black shirt. Can you get one more? Yeah, with the water bottle out of the way. There we go. Will, let me know when you're good. Good? I'm good. All right. We'll just to your right over here.